person.
Oh, you're good, man. Don't even worry about it.
Because you said it. Like she told me to grab Chick-fil-A, so there'd be.
I actually tried this out.
Yeah.
Where's that?
It might be Stone.
Stone, that's okay, that is what it becomes.
I know, it's a corner. And then somebody said, sorry about it.
Okay, I'll say my mother will.
Is it one of the old?
Yeah.
It was probably like, you're in.
It builds your immune system.
So good morning.
Good
Morning.
Morning.
There's always that like transition moment, right? It's like everybody's all over. So how was the night? How did it go? Anybody?
See, I didn't see a single thing.
So that's the good news.
Ghost town traffic wise, everything.
Here's the bad news about that, is that even when you don't see another single soul, you do get to be with yourself, and trust me, there's enough fodder. You can't get away from other people, but you're still gonna live in your own head,
That's true.
in terms of opportunities, with yourself. So does anyone, have any, thoughts they wanna share as you played with this? How did it work? What did you
How was the
find
windshield
out?
wiper bringing it back? Did you notice how many times, even from last night till this morning, your thoughts went to, another scenario and you had to pull it back? Did y'all notice that at all? Yeah? Yeah.
Are we giving examples?
Yeah,
We love
sure.
examples.
Because from your story, everyone will relate to that and it will help them.
Well, when you all meet Billy Ray, you can't say anything. So, I only call Billy Ray when I want something. I call him Billy, he's professional. So, but last night, he's not a very social person, so it takes a lot, we've got to plan it in advance, so that we know it's coming. So we're going someplace Saturday night, and I asked him first,
Before you
2
committed.
days ago, before I committed, he said yes. Yesterday, I said, so what are you wearing? He said, why are you asking? You really shouldn't have, said we were gonna go. And so, Come back to self. My team knows a little bit about me. Okay, so I do love Billy Ray. So I called myself, and I just said, we're gonna have I said, you know something? We're gonna have a really good time. I'm really glad that you said that, because we don't do a whole lot during the holidays. And he said, you're right. And I said, yes! Because here's what, do you want to know what the change was?
Yeah.
I would have said, what do you mean? What do you mean? I asked you first. I said it. I wouldn't accept it. You said I know you got a strange personality. I would have said yes. But I pulled it back.
But when you pulled it back with the windshield wiper.
Can I just say something? I was thinking, I could say something, I could get him, I could just say something. But no, and he answered in his appropriateness, which scared me because he didn't come to the class. So,
That's so awesome. Because could you imagine if you learned that at the beginning,
Yeah.
Wow.
Year one.
Like how much time would we have saved? How much more cooperation?
18 years, my gosh.
I'm 31. Could you imagine what life would have looked like? Because we just don't know. We just dive into it. We're ready to launch into that attack. And well, why'd you say it? And the argument starts where it's just like you get functional. He's like, I don't even know what to do with it.
Yeah.
It's so functional. Like what
I
do you
call
do
it,
that? Okay.
we all watched too many Westerns when we were kids. I call it guns up. When something happens, right, that's the slightest thing off what we thought or expected or wanted to, and we go guns up. It's like, and when we go guns up, what happens to the person across the conversation from us? They go guns up. And the next thing you know is, you're stuck in a stalemate until somebody feels safe enough to put their guns down. It's kind of interesting.
Which usually doesn't come till after the after dinner prayer.
After dinner break. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to say it that
Right.
way, whatever. Any other stories? Anybody else want to?
Any more examples? Because these are so helpful to the group when you notice how many times your thoughts. Do you have one?
Did I have
Or many?
but yeah, I think I had a couple. Let's see, the main one probably was last night with my wife as well. It's holiday season, so you have all these activities to go to. We have 2 tonight at the same time that we have to split up, so it makes my wife very, very nervous to have to do that kind of stuff. And but I promote it and say, we can, so I'm sort of like the optimist. And so last night she was asking me, what's the plan? What's the plan? And as much as I wanted to say, the same plan as last year. No big deal. But I was able to look inward and think about it
Bring it
and say,
back.
okay, wow, this is an opportunity to sort of, exercise what I learned today. So I just kind of
Good.
reached back out to her and said, well, what do you think we should do? What would be most comfortable? Because I'm okay with whatever you're okay with. I just want to make it comfortable for you. And so I think from there, she sort of went
Yeah.
down and gave her an opportunity to think through it. And we ultimately decided that we do exactly what we did. We started at
Come on, remember, there's no right and wrong.
Yeah.
Right and wrong.
It's so great.
It's so funny.
Yeah, no, my story is actually very similar to Mona's, except so my wife.
Oh, yeah, can you guys push out so?
So we can see each other.
It's so, yeah, it's hard when you're leaning across people. Just sort of make this into a circle rather than 2 straight lines. That's perfect.
Yeah.
When Laura and I got married a while ago, so I guess we were married 16 years, we made this deal with each other that we would not involve, we would be extremely selective in how we involve each other in each other's work events. So, because she's got a lot of stuff that I do not like medical parties, and she's, so anyway, we've had this deal, and basically there's like one thing a year with the Hall of Fame that you guys know that Laura does with me, and there's usually one like doctor thing that I do with her, and the rest we out of each other's worlds. And so we had this trip coming up that's work related in January. It's been planned for quite a while. Dates have been out there, agreements have been made. And so she sends me a text yesterday morning, this was before the class, so somehow I just saved that text without doing my normal response. And somehow, it's almost like I had predestined learnings. And the text when she was at a work meeting, and kind of work out their schedule, she's like, so what are the dates of that trip again? I sent it to her back, the whole thing, she's like, response basically is like, it's 5 days. And I could hear it like coming through the text. And my head's going, yes, we've covered that, it's on the calendar, been discussed many times, we've got the airfare, we've also got the hotel, we've got all these things. And then the texts keep coming. So I just like kind of held on to it. And then literally, as we were leaving here, I picked up the phone, all the texts were still there, I hadn't responded to them yet. I wrote back, I said, totally understand why you're frustrated, we can do whatever's best for you.
Aw.
And then, so I get home, and it was like what you were saying about the support but no advice. I wasn't thinking about it for my daughter.
Oh, your wife.
Yeah. And so it was interesting because then like she just totally worked it through, and then like by the end of it, I literally did not say a thing. By the end of it, she's like, yeah, I guess it'll be fine. We'll just do it this one time.
There you go. Isn't that great?
Woo,
Awesome.
these are
Great
such awesome
stories.
examples.
And it's amazing because you learned a dot. You learned a concept, an idea, and you're already seeing from night when we left to the morning how this really could work. Imagine when you learn the whole system and it interacts. The biocodes interact. All these subjects. Whether you're communicating a difficult situation, whether you're navigating a disappointment, if somebody's emotionally charged, you'll have strategies in the moment to really be able to handle it so effectively, and you'll notice it's almost like a magic wand, like you have this little secret.
It's my Harry Potter girl.
Yeah, it's like a little secret. It's like how things just start diffusing so effortlessly instead of escalating. So those are perfect examples. Does anybody else want to share?
I have a poor example.
Yeah, and that's great too, because then we can all look at it and
Yeah, let's
see.
look. Well, because I guess maybe, like you said, here's what I know, it is me. Because I get irritated very easily with entitlement and laziness. And sometimes it's hard for me to stand in the face of that and be calm.
Okay,
Are you talking about the work thing?
Yeah.
Okay, but before you go there, I have a question. So,
okay.
I get I get what we're supposed to be learning, and I completely am on board with it, and I understand it. And have heard it not only from y'all, but from a lot of professionals that I've paid to help me hear it. The reality is that you cannot live that way 24/7. You just
You
can't.
can't. You're
You
right.
cannot. It's physically and chemically impossible. So it would be great if I could hear from y'all that to say it's okay when the moments you don't live that way, it's okay, just keep going. Because I feel like I don't want us to walk out of here thinking that, and this is back to your point, Jill, about putting people in a box. Like, I don't want every interaction now I have with everybody around this table to be like, are you going back, are you windshield wipering it back to yourself, Taylor, or
Yeah.
this and this and this? Because that is not reality, because we understand it and we try to act on it, but the reality is we won't be able to 24/7.
Yeah, and we touched on that yesterday,
Right.
that you can't do that 24/7. If you could, you wouldn't need our help, period. You know, that's just the way that it is. This is an exercise program. You start from the condition that you're in, and you make more mistakes than you get it right. You know, that's one of the things we're going to be going over today is everybody is fired from course correcting anybody else, because if you don't catch it within yourself, then it's not going to work. And, you know, so nobody should have eyes on anybody else. Basically, if you can't be strong in that moment, then it's somebody else's opportunity to help by them being functional, and that's what will help you. But everybody is fired from correcting, fixing, pointing out, or
Giving
else it won't get
advice.
done. The answers come from within, not from without. It's just like if, you know, you have a child and you keep telling them what they need to do, they don't learn how to do it themselves. This work is solo work, period. It's only about you. That means if somebody else is doing it, your best input in it is just for you to try to help by doing the next right thing when they can't. Because most of the time at the beginning, you will not be able to do this. This is a process. This takes time to practice. But like any good exercise program, the more you practice, the easier it gets. So what happens at the beginning is these pain indicators come really, really, really frequently. They do.
Well,
This is just
yeah.
the way that they are.
Yeah, and I literally have been in therapy since my mother died when I was 23, and so my point, my vehemence in the fact that you're never gonna get it right all the time is the fact that I'm very aware of my pain points and how I react, but I still,
Yeah,
it will be a work in progress
it
until
is a
I'm
work
dead
in
and
progress.
gone.
For all of
Always.
us.
Right.
For all of us. And it depends on how severe that pain is and, you know, what strategies you use to work with that. And, you know, pain is pain. We're never gonna wake up in the morning and go like, wow, my mom died, like, you have pain.
I'm good with that now.
I mean, that's not okay. I mean, that's,
Right.
you know, it is a pain point, and it always should be a pain point because you love your mom, and that sucks that that happened. That's a huge loss. But what happens over time as you exercise the biocodes is, you know, first it's intense and the frequencies are very, very, very strong. And every time you catch it and you do a dot, what happens is you get a little bit stronger, and the intensity of it starts getting less.
Absolutely.
And the frequencies of reminders start spacing themselves out. So at the beginning, every 5 seconds, you get one of these biocodes, like, oh, here we go again. Then you notice after a couple weeks, like, maybe they're every hour, then every day, then every other day. It just starts getting less and less and less, till eventually what comes your way is easier to handle. But life will always come at you. It's not gonna stop. You're always gonna be involved in life. We're not trying to live in a utopia. No one said that. Biocodes are about pain. And no one's exempt from that when you're dealing with life, with problems, with people, with situations, right?
Right.
So it's not about being perfect, it's about having a tool and a skill to work on yourself when you feel your own pain point, period. And you will always feel pain points, but hopefully, over time, they're just gonna get softer and softer and spread out more.
Right.
But, you know, bring it, I mean, I wake up every morning and I don't go like, wow, I'm perfect. You know, I say thank you for, you know, my life, a full life, a great life, and for everything that I've been through, but show me something I don't know today, teach me something new, and that has to come through, you know, like, wait, what, I didn't know that, like,
Right.
you know, it has to come from the unknown, from an unanswered question, period.
And what you'll notice too is the judge's robe. When you say, well, I don't want other people to judge me. Well, what you'll notice is that we do that to ourselves. We like think, oh, you know, again, that's that, you know, it's setting an expectation on yourself. And it's so easy to say, well, I don't want other people to judge me that way. But it's just being, it's like Jill said, it's just being kind to yourself while you learn. You're just learning. And
Well,
you're
you're gonna
learning,
make
by the way, whether we
so
like to
many
admit it or
mistakes.
not, that the highest and best lived lives are people who know they're learners from now till we leave.
That's right.
Like, you never stop learning, you're never too old to learn something new. So learning is just learning, and you
Yeah.
just get a little better each time. There's no judgment around that.
All right, I didn't mean to hijack you, sorry.
No, you're good.
No, but that's such an important point,
Yeah.
because everybody should understand we're not trying to be perfect. The last thing the biocode system is about trying to make people judge other people or correct other people, or for us to be in this box that we have to act a certain way. It's, you know, have a go at it, like, just have this in mind. Do your exercises when you remember to do your exercises. You'll notice when you need to do them because there'll be a pain point. We're looking for pain points. We want the pain points. So we can do a tiny little exercise, and you will be shocked at how much you will grow over time with little tiny moves. Now, y'all only learn Biocode 1. You know, obviously the philosophy and the concept, most people that hear this is like, yeah, well, that makes sense. I've heard that before, you know. Who hasn't heard this stuff before? But could we do this stuff?
We know more than we can do.
Right, but we're still gonna be going through biocodes 2 to 5, which are a lot of skills, a lot of skills. And then you're gonna learn how to work all of them together, like a system. So when these things happen, you know, you have to know your rules, and everyone who's biocoding has to know their rules, because the program is all about self-accountability. It's not about course correction for another person. Period. And if you're doing that, then you're really not biocoding, you're just, you know, judging somebody for being in the real world where life happens, you know.
If I can add to that,
Yeah.
early on, we talked about yesterday, before, during, and after, the 3 places you can catch it. And I think what really helps is this idea of praise. And when I first started, I'm constantly praising myself for catching my bad behavior. And it's like, I wasn't even, in the first few weeks, it's not that I was, I think, executing a lot of this correctly, but when I wasn't, I would notice it, and then I would pray, yeah, nice, I noticed it, I can take that back and I can work on that. And so it's finding a way to praise yourself, even when you know you didn't handle the situation right, just the fact that you recognize you didn't handle the situation right is progress and moves in the right direction, and then you grow from there. Yeah.
Good point.
So you're gonna give us
I
a,
didn't catch it example.
But I'm gonna praise myself for.
But I'm good with that.
I'm good with that.
You have to
Well,
be,
no,
because
no,
that's
I
where you
think-
grow from.
I think the real question is once you've identified your pain point, what do you do?
Well, that's today,
Oh,
today,
okay,
we didn't get
so
there
you didn't
yet.
have the tools yet for that.
That's
Yeah.
what, see, you left me toolless, and so
We did. It's only been a half a day.
Was it last night or this morning?
this morning, it was this morning,
So what, yeah.
So essentially, I mean, it has a history to do with this person. And so it's an employee that works with, on my team, and she's a new kind of addition to the team. And as the new addition to the team, like, I feel like I have communicated to her several times about where we as an organization are going. And I think part of the problem is that, I'm looking at Lenovia because
Is it
Lenovia.
you?
No,
Is it
no,
you?
no, I'm looking at Lenovia. Lenovia is like my counterbalance to this person.
Yes.
Like, she will help me talk off the ledge of this person. because I feel like I've communicated, like, let's just say this, like, I've communicated that your position is going to be different, right? And so, in my mind, I'm like, great, let's create what your position can be. This person is stuck in what their old position was. And so I feel like very, very slowly, part of my pressure point is she keeps undermining my authority, or I don't know, authority, or like my, I'm trying to help you, girl. Like, so, the fact that I keep fighting her for it. So, today, so her program is ending, and so I signed her up for some professional development. So she sends me an email today that says that she's not gonna be able to make it to this professional development because of her current responsibilities for her current job that I just told you was gonna change. So I don't understand why you got all these current responsibilities for a job that's changing, but I digress. So the pressure points for me is I'm irritated on so many levels with her.
Right.
And I just can't be nice about it anymore. Like, I feel like at what point do you say, you know what, I'm being really unclear with you. So maybe I need to clarify. Like, so I don't know what to do in that pressure point, because she really upset me because she's not listening.
Yeah, and again, we're gonna learn how to handle something like that. Like, that's a big question for some, for a group of people who learn Biocode 1, because there's several layers to that. There's ineffective communication. It doesn't matter, what we say. Our words are only strong as somebody else's ability to take action upon it. If they're not able to take action upon it, is it that they don't hear right? In biocoding, it's because we didn't say it in a way where they could hear it.
Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm just really
Yeah, but we'll learn how to say that today.
You were exactly right.
We'll learn how to
You were
say
in a
that
situation
today.
trying to solve a problem that we haven't
You
gotten to the
didn't
tools.
get to the tools yet, because if you look at the biocodes, number one, obviously, is understanding you're responsible for your part in that, just your behavior in that. The fact that you're getting frustrated, right?
So that's my part, right?
And
So I'm
impatient
frustrated.
is about you, because when she pushed against you, she was the hands that squeezed the lemon.
Right.
Frustration
She
came
got
out
me.
of you, judgment came out of you,
Did you put sugar in it?
right? Yeah.
The Beyonce kind.
Right, so.
Guns up.
Yeah, like,
Okay, yeah.
so you already know that there's a biocode 2 for you in there,
Okay.
because there's pain indicators. It's, when you got exposed to fill in the blank, separate yourself from that. What happened to your behavior? You became overwhelmed, you became frustrated, you became impatient, you became annoyed, you became judgmental of her. I mean, there's so many things that happened to you. So the opportunities, not how we solve a problem, because this is not about that. This is about how you get strong to be able to handle people who have comprehension issues.
That's your
But here's the thing, but
Can I
if,
ask a question?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm just gonna ask, so like, will we get, and it sounds like we will, I just wanna clarify, but like when you think about this from a leadership development perspective in an organization, and you made the point yesterday that there's a difference between biocoding and addressing performance.
Yeah.
Are we gonna
Oh,
cover that?
Oh, yeah,
Totally.
we're gonna totally cover that today, because today what we're gonna do is we're gonna run through we're gonna review. We're gonna run through all of the biocodes, and then we're gonna create case scenarios where y'all could start practicing and watching what do you do when. But it's hard to know what to do when you haven't quite learned it yet. But if you see the light that's flashing, it's a communication issue. And
Okay.
because there's a breakdown in communication, right? Isn't there a breakdown in communication going on here? It's like her intent is good, but the result that she's getting is weak. Intentions must equal results. If they don't, we have to take a different action step. Because you're saying like, hey, here's what's going on, and she's like, wait, what? You're like, well, let me be more specific with you. Here's what's going on. And she's like, okay, but wait, what? And you're like, all right, if she says, wait, what, one more time,
I'm gonna punch
I
her.
think I'm gonna punch her in the face. So we have to be able to say things in a way where somebody could actually comprehend it. And there's skills that you'll learn in Biocode 4 to try to do that.
Well, so let's go back to the windshield wiper, right? Like, because they all seemed really, I'm putting my judgment hat on.
Well, most
But
people
they
get
all
it wrong
seem
more
so
than they get it
together.
right.
Like, I'm
We
like,
just
I'm
gave you the
like,
example where it worked.
well, no, like, I mean, there's a part of me that goes like, what, like, is in Biocode 1, like,
Is there a way to like not be that person? Like, are you just destined to be the short wig person? Like, you see what I'm saying?
The more you practice it, the easier it is for you to have inner stability while dealing with dysfunctional situations.
Oh, okay.
But your biocoding comes in more of your situations. Here's where it didn't work, so I could have the awareness to learn what to do to try it on for the next time. You know, if it was that easy, you know, they're already good at that. If they said it was that easy, like I had that conversation, he was already good at that. They already knew how to have that conversation.
That was
or
a
they,
personal relationship, this is a work relationship.
yeah, and it doesn't even matter. The fact that they were able to have that effective conversation means they probably did. They used the skill, but they didn't need it that much. They probably would have been able to do
We
that
already knew
anyway.
what the right thing to do was, we were just prompted to.
You already knew, but you just used the technique to apply the
I did
technique.
not want to go off
you
last
know.
night and come here and tell you. My
Well,
vision.
and I want to make a point too, Jack, to your question, because, you know, obviously I spent 20 years leading human resources teams, so I've been in every industry, a lot of different companies, and, you know, people are people are people. I don't care what you sell, who you sell it to, how big your company is or small. And when I go to leaders and I talk about, okay, we have a strategy, you know, we're trying to accomplish X. What is the single biggest barrier as an organization? What's the problem you run into that's the biggest barrier to getting X accomplished, mission accomplished?
People.
Every person will say,
People problems.
if the people would just do what they're told, if everybody would just show up, we would be fine. It's people problems. And Steve Jobs, I think it was Steve Jobs, testified before Congress one time, and he talked about when he first came out with the computer, right, PCs, right, years ago. And in Congress, he's testifying against Congress, and they're like, well, this sounds like, this is amazing, like, this is gonna change the world. Like, what's slowing down you moving this forward? He goes, it's the people, they won't buy it. I mean, it's just this notion that everything that we're trying to do, everything in life, everything that's about productivity or relationships or anything has to do with people. So the answer, Jack, to your question about, is this gonna connect to how I manage? Because I have a job description to do, and I have people I have to do it with, including myself. So if you're gonna execute the job description, you've gotta understand your part in it and the human operating system of the people who don't want to do what you're asking them to. And then when you put that tool into all the skills you learned about how to set clear goals and how to measure performance and how to, you know, get teams together. When you put it all together, now you have the secret sauce, to her point, the fuel that goes in the Ferraris. And then not everybody's a Ferrari. That's a conversation we'll get into, right? You have some Ferraris, you have some VW buses, you have some jalopies. You know, you have different kind of vehicles going out there, and you can't, you know, treat them all the same, right? But you'll learn skills that will help you know how to do that. Right?
Yeah, I mean, people aren't gonna just be perfect, and we're not gonna live, you know, like you alluded to, in this box. It's just not gonna happen. You're gonna always be dealing with something, whether it be yourself, your thoughts, and other people. It's like most people that all these years that sit in front of me, I was like, oh, so what's going on? They don't go like, well, I want you to create a strategy with me because we need better technology in my organization. They don't need my help for that. You know, they don't need, well, I want to go over profits and losses with you because, you know, I think that we're not, like, they're not calling my name for that. What they're saying is what's getting in their way is communication. Breakdowns of communication all day, every day, period. They're saying things don't go according to plan, people are stepping on the feet, people are excluding them, they're not being heard, people are taking credit for their work. It's all about human behavior because we come from, like we spoke yesterday, different backgrounds and we have different pain points and we have different experiences. We have different references and then you come to the table with what you think. That, I promise you, if I spoke to the person you're referring, she thinks she's doing the right thing. In her brain, she doesn't wake up in the morning and go, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go screw her over again. I'm gonna just say the wrong thing to see if I can like poke, you know, at her. She's not thinking that. She thinks she's. I really don't know. The strategy.
Yeah, Derek does that.
But no, I mean,
Yeah, no, I guess, but there are people people who wake up and like
Yeah.
have obstinance in them, right? Like they're like.
But they don't intentionally do that.
Oh.
They don't say like, you
They're
know
doing the best
what,
they
I'm
can.
gonna go to work today and see how many people I can piss off. People go with a good intention, but they don't have the tools and the skills to actualize that. So they have a good intention, again, with a poor result. Again and again, our hamsters going around the wheel. Like,
And
I don't get it, I'm doing the right thing, but no one pays attention to me. I'm trying my best, but no one acknowledges me. I'm really feeling like I'm showing up, but they keep telling me I'm not doing a good enough job. They're the victims of their mind and their lives. They're really not participating from a level of empowerment.
And I guarantee you, she thinks you're the one who's not listening.
Right, I'm not at one point, right? She's right, because I'm irritated, so I'm not on some level.
Yeah, but that's a frustration. That's a hamster wheel going around and around and around. You know what it reminds me of? It's like, I love this analogy. It's like, we all have the worth, right? We come to the world and we're worthy, simply, honestly, because we exist. We're all worthy of having a good life. So like, a great analogy is like, you have kids and you go into the grocery store and your kid goes like, Mommy, I want to go get the bubble gum. Well, the bubble gum, I want my kids to have it all, do it all, be it all, experience it all. So it's like, of course, here's a quarter and you could go ahead and get your bubble gum, right? So we have the worth and we see what it is that we want. We want the result. We want the bubble gum. And this is what we do. We take our worth, we put it in the bubble gum machine, we do an action step, and it only goes halfway and it gets stuck and we're not sitting there with the bubble gum. We're like, wait, what? Like, I want my bubble gum. And we do it again and again and again. We don't understand why we're worthy people. We're smart people. We should be successful. We should be acknowledged. But yet we try again and again and again, and we're not standing there with the bubble gum in our hand, with the raise, with the acknowledgement, with the praise, with the easy communication. We're a frustrated society because our intention is so obvious. What we want from life is so obvious, but we can't connect it. The action steps that we're going to learn how to take is, by the time we put our worth into the situation, whatever it may be, we got to have a full circle that when we're standing there, that result is right there in our hands. And if it's not, then it's going to be our responsibility to try to do it differently, not the same thing again and again and again. Is that kind of making sense? Yeah? Do we all kind of catch on to this analogy? I mean, that's the point. We have good intentions and weak results, but we don't have different actions
And
because
our
we think
natural-
we're doing the right thing, because we think we're right.
And our natural thing when we don't get the result
Yeah.
is to go over there right away and say, I can't get my gum because that machine, that
But
person.
she's not
Your
getting it.
machine's broken.
Right.
Yeah, or we just shout louder. Like, how many times do I have to say, have you ever disciplined your children and said that? We talked about this yesterday. How many times do I have to tell you to clean your room? Well, if you keep telling them to clean their room that many times and their room's not good, you got a really weak strategy. If you did that, you wouldn't have created business at the level you did, right? I mean, we have to have a good intention and a way of communicating them that could inspire and produce a result that's actionable. And if it's not, we gotta try a different way. Is this kind of making sense? But again, you have the problems. Hopefully, we all should have our problems because that's the world we live in. But now we have to learn more skills to be able to practice that, right? Good? Does anybody have any other examples that they want to throw
Because
out?
this thing you're gonna learn, and we're gonna do a lot of this today, but what you'll realize is, at some point, we'll get through the rest of the bio codes, and you'll be like, this makes so much sense, this makes so much sense. People say this makes so much sense. And then you feel like, okay, I'm good, and then you go try to do it, and then you're skidding into the dust,
Yeah.
and then you're like, wait, why didn't that work? And so then, so it's by everybody's example and your willingness to say, well, so I tried this, and then that, and sharing that, not only will the person who shares the example learn, but everybody listening will be like, oh, yeah, I see how this, because all we're teaching you is a system. We're not telling you how to think or be or who you are or who other, all we're doing is teaching you a system to use, a technique, skills. So the situation's irrelevant. You can use a home situation, work situation, whatever, but by having the situation and then by saying, okay, I put it in gear, I released the emergency brake and I hit the gas pedal, but then it didn't go. Now we're just gonna tell you, but, did you start the engine? Oh, shit, I didn't start the engine. I'm trying to break that habit. Shoot. But so, oh yeah, I forgot to oh, forgot to start the engine, I missed that one. And then you're gonna remember
You go,
next
"Oh,
time,
okay."
oh, before I do that, I'm gonna start the engine, then I'm gonna put it in gear, then I'm gonna release the emergency brake. So we're just teaching you a system. And so by sharing your examples, you can see where you missed and you can see what step you skipped. So, and anybody can learn. You can learn from your example or whatever.
Was a great combination of self-awareness and discipline.
Right, it's skills. We already know more than we can do. How many of you have gone to a class or a therapist or a leadership training or read a book? And then you go, oh yeah, I read that somewhere, I learned that, I heard that. But we know more than we can do. We have the knowledge without the how to apply it in real time, real life, when life is coming at us, at the speed it's coming at us. You don't have time to go back and pull that book and remember, oh yeah, what that guy say, what was that model? It's a 6-step model and, right, seriously? Who's gonna remember all that? So we're gonna give you something that you're not gonna need a book, you're not gonna have to go pull your models out, you're just gonna know, oh yeah, start the engine. Like, it's just gonna be quick, easy, little micro moves. And the more you practice, when you get in your car in the morning, do you have to tell yourself to start the engine? No. Sometimes. Some of it's
Too
just.
much of those automatic cars.
Yeah, that's actually true. My favorite one is I got my car, opened the door one time and started the car and backed up with the door open and took the door right off of my garage. So, yeah, some things are obvious and we still need to learn them again and again. So.
Yeah, and remember it's an exercise program, and at first it's really hard to exercise. But like Scott could attest to this, but the more you practice, the easier it is to exercise and the more excited you get about exercising. Like, did you ever decide, well, this is the perfect time of the year where we all decide this. Like, come
New Year's.
January 1, we're gonna go to the gym, right? We're gonna start working out. Everybody decided to lose the weight and I'm gonna get in shape, right? And that first day, you don't think to yourself as the clock hits midnight, like, oh, I can't wait till tomorrow to go to the gym. Your thoughts are like, oh, why did I make that commitment? I do it every year. This is stupid. I never followed through. Your thoughts are going to be, don't do it, right? But then you go ahead and do it anyway. And after the first day, you come back and go like, that sucked. That was horrible. And then you go, all right, just do it again. Well, by the second, third week, you're like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym before work. And then it gets easier and easier and easier until you want to go to the gym more than you don't want to go to the gym. Because everything that you practice, you get addicted to, good, bad, or ugly, right? And when you start practicing better ways of being, you get addicted to this. You get really excited about being this way because it makes your life so much easier and happier, and you see people around you starting, to interact with you better. It's addictive, and it's addictive in a good way. Thoughts are addictive. Whatever you focus on, you crave more of the same. We're just giving you some good tools to be focused on. So as you go into life and you hit those pain points, and most growth is done where you're not getting it, not where you effortlessly get it. I go to the gym and that was effortless. Well, there's probably not going to be a huge amount of growth going on there. But if I'm finding pain points in my day, that means I have so much opportunity to keep practicing it. And we learn mostly from where we don't see it, where we aren't getting it, where we fall on our butts, where we get back up, where we have to try again. That's where the big workouts come in and the big changes happen. Not from, well, I did that and I was perfect at that. Great, well, kudos. Now, all right, now let's talk about the hard stuff.
And Jill made the comment that when you work out all the time, like if you're an athlete and, or you're just somebody who works out all the time, like you're not gonna go to the gym next Monday and get like a huge, like you're not gonna, if you've been bench pressing 300 pounds for 6 months, you're not gonna go in and bench press 350, right? You're not gonna get that thing. However, if you are working out every day and you stop working out, what's gonna happen? Right, you're gonna have to go back down to 225 and work your way back up again, and this is the same way. So so there's a factor of you get growth from where you're weak and you see where you can go, but there's a factor of sustainability that you wanna achieve, which means you never, again, you're never fixed, whatever that is. It's not like, okay, I'm functional now, and now I can go back to sleep, and I can go on autopilot, and I can go let myself drift back into my old habits, because if you do, it's the same thing as if you need to work it out. So there's both you grow from where you're weak, and you have the greatest opportunity from your greatest pain points to make a big leap in comfort in life and functionality and enjoyment of your life. And then when you're at that level, you continue to stay at your game, which is why when you guys took the survey, some of you in this room are Olympians. You know, your score has already got you at the Olympic level, and you've earned that Olympic level. However, sustainability at that level is as important a factor as getting to that level. And you can always, you know, learn something new, to Jill's point.
Oh, yeah.
Even from where you are, even as functional as you are, you can learn something new. So there's
I mean,
something-
most people that I meet are highly functional people. They want to go from great to greater. You know, they're not like sitting there like, well, what do I want to be when I grow up, or how do I figure out how to not be homeless? I mean, these people are like highly functional people that want to up their game and get even stronger and even stronger. And the only way to do that is to work on your pain points. Yeah, as you get good at this, will you have as many pain points? No. Will biocoding be more second nature? Of course. But either way, you're still always going to have pain points, and you look forward to them actually, because you know when you're in, you know, like my state or condition or like Jill's, you don't get them as often. So when you get them, you get so excited because you're like, oh wow, I get an opportunity to work on that. You know, and then you just biocode and you go like, oh, that was great. I can't wait for another one. But hopefully, as you work on this, it gets easier and easier and easier. Your pain points get less and less and less. Your life becomes more effortless, and it does, but that takes work. You know, I remember a very funny story when my kids were young and we're talking about Halloween and dressing up and everything, and I was like, yeah, maybe I should dress up with you guys. What should I be? And they look at me and they go, Jell-O. And I'm like, oh. I was like, all right, let me sign up for LA Fitness tomorrow. Like, you know what? You know, you hit your pain point. You got to work out. You know, and you got to keep going with it. You know, life.
So, can you biocode without a pain point?
No, you can't biocode with a pain point, because when your life is going well, you should be enjoying your life. You should just be in it. It's, you know, life shouldn't be. We shouldn't be working on it all the time. Hopefully we get to the point where we're really just productive in the real world, where people and problem exist, but it doesn't feel like pain.
That's what live in the moment really means, right? It's like,
It's
so
not a
often when
utopia.
life is good, when things are really going well, we make up something to agitate ourselves about, because somehow there must be, like, we're always in the future. We're like, okay, I'm here, rather than like, like I'm here, I'm having a great day, I'm loving life, I'm going home, you know, little bumps and bruises along the way, but you're just living and loving life. You're not always like out there trying to fix something or
No,
achieve
you don't want to be a process junkie.
Right.
You just want to work your moments, you want to work them when they come, you want to praise yourself for even having the awareness, if you even have it, and then carrying on to the next moment, and just having a way of developing yourself more effortlessly in your life.
And then when, you know, a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago on Monday, you know, get the 2 o'clock in the morning phone call, and it's your, you know, daughter, you know, she's like, you know, I can't breathe, I think I'm having a heart attack, my chest is killing me, oh my God, get me to the hospital, help me. You know, that situation, like sometimes you will get those things that come out of nowhere. My response to a situation like that, my ability to do the right thing in the moment and handle that situation, 5 years ago, I'm undone with that, right? Now it's like, okay, obviously she's on the phone talking to me, so clearly she can't breathe. You know, so you know, you get in a place where
It's
you
not hard.
separate. It's hard, of course.
You're not going to go,
But you,
wow,
no,
she can't
of course
breathe,
not. But
yay.
no, right. But you can separate yourself from problems so much faster. Like you just go, okay, so the situation's a problem. Obviously, it's a problem that needs addressing in an urgent way. However, I don't need to like get hijacked.
Become reactive.
Become reactive into that problem. You can step back. You can hear the situation, the problem. You can think clearly and quickly. You can make decisions and take action. And most importantly, you cannot just, you know, have a massive emotional, you know, meltdown in your life because these things happen. But that kind of ability to do that didn't get built in handling crisis. It got built in doing this work on little speed bumps every day, and then little ones. And then
It's the
you
little
get,
stuff.
it's the little things every day and building the muscle, the yarn ball that we talked about yesterday, that Scott said, you know, that yarn ball gets, you know, like this and then this and then this. And then when somebody sticks a big pin in it, you already have those practices because they are habits. There's practices. And then you just apply them to that situation you know, and then you move on.
You know, when you think about BioCode 1, you know, the whole concept is growing in the storm, right? I mean, the whole BioCode system is developing in the storm, not when it's not storming. So like a great analogy is like if you're at the beach, we all, you know, at least I do, I love the beach, I'm a summer person. And we have this concept, we have this idea that we want to stay strong within ourselves, right? But in order to stay strong within ourselves, we got to be able to weather the storm, right? So if I say like, here's a pole, and your job, you have one job in BioCode 1, is this is the idea of who you are. Morals, ethics, values, beliefs, staying strong and functional within yourself, right? Keeping the focus on your behavior only, how you represent yourself. Is all I want you to do is on the beach, it's a beautiful day, everybody's playing, the sun is shining, the waves are coming in and out, and you just have to pretty much just stand there happily and just hold on to that pole. Like how hard really would it be to stand there in a beautiful day and just hold on to that idea, that concept, that pole? Do you think it would be hard? No, right? Not that hard. But what happens if the storm starts coming, right? What happens if it's August and it's hurricane season and the winds start coming? If the winds start coming around you, we've all been around the winds, right? What would you have to do to hold on to that pole? You'd have to brace yourself and hold on even harder, right? Wouldn't you? If the winds, and what if it gets stronger? You'd have to hold on even harder. Now, if the winds are coming and you're working really hard, and this is hard work, to hold on in that storm, what's happening to your muscles? They're developing. They're developing, they're getting stronger, right? So the next time that same wind storm comes by, it might feel a little more effortless to hold on to the pole. You get that? Eventually, a hurricane might feel like a breeze. Like you ever see the little weakling is on the beach and he gets sand kicked in his face and he falls over, but the muscle man is like, oh, I can hold on in that storm effortlessly. You get stronger than your environment. And when you get stronger than your environment, that environment feels easier. But we grow in the storm, not in the calm, with the biocodes. Does that make sense? If you let go, all you would be caught into the winds of the storm, meaning whatever chaos is around you, now you're part of that problem. You're not bigger than it, right? Does that make sense? So think about it that way, that we're trying to grow in the storms of our life, and the storms don't have to be hurricane, you know,
It can be one
high-class
person that makes you
hurricane.
crazy.
It could be a word that somebody says. It could be a thought like, this is not going to work for me, or this nothing will ever change. It could be just something where you're beating yourself up, you're putting yourself down, you're making yourself wrong, or you're judging anybody for any reason whatsoever. Because we're all trying to figure it out from where we're at. And everybody's where they're at. Everybody's independent, right? We're individuals, and we're where we're at, and we're all trying from where we're at. So if we're trying, we have to allow for those differences, right? Everybody can't be perfect. Everybody can't be us. You know, we don't have the right book. We think we have the right book. Well, as soon as you start a conversation and you hear the word shouldn't she know better? You just should all over her. Well, obviously she doesn't. What if she does have comprehension issues and you don't see that because she appears functional? I don't know. You don't really know what goes on in somebody else's, but clearly there's a communication issue. So instead of judging, we would say, how can we help? How could I help? Maybe say it differently. Maybe I could write it down. Maybe she's not audio, maybe she's visual. Maybe she's not a verbal communicator as well as she is. If you say, this is going to be your new job description. So this is not going to be your new job description. We're going to put all our time clock point here. Who knows? Maybe she learns that way. She'll go, ding, light bulb moment, I get it. I don't know, but clearly your strategy isn't working, so we have to think of another way of trying to help the situation to be more effective. So does that make sense? Yeah?
And again, it'll make a lot more sense when you have real life examples. 'Cause
Yeah, and
clearly,
tools.
and we'll constantly, everything we're gonna do is gonna be real world stuff. And clearly, there are situations,
Yeah.
back to the manager hat, you know, there's your job descriptions to run JA, your job descriptions to, you know, run the piece of it that you run. And clearly, you don't always have the right people in the right roles doing the right things. I mean, that just happens. So that's a situation that has to be looked at fact-based and objectively, and then you have to make certain decisions and do certain things to
Oh,
make sure you're
absolutely.
achieving your mission. But it doesn't have to be emotion or frustration or they don't get it, like you can leave all that
You
aside.
can do it kindly.
And do it kindly, but it doesn't mean you don't move that ball down the field, because if you're trying to win the game, you better put points on the board. If you're like getting along as a team and y'all love each other and you're high-fiving and in the locker room, you're best friends, and you're losing every game you're playing, well, guess what? It doesn't matter how great strong your friendships are, you have to put points on the board, and you want to learn to do it in the way that you're maximizing the relationship and the alignment with people and the clarity of the goals and the roles and the positions to put points on the board. So it's not either or, it's and, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, and even managing an employee like that, she, I'm not saying that she is or she isn't, but it might not be the highest and best thing or job description for her. And sometimes being kind to somebody is understanding and being able to see that and taking the pulse of that person and seeing what's going on and putting her in a position that she could succeed, or having her leave the company so she could get a job where she can succeed. Sometimes that's the most compassionate thing to do if you've done everything that you could. And that's a part of being an effective manager and leader, to be able to notice how you could help people along. And if you put someone in a position where they're failing and you just keep judging them, well,
What do you do?
that's, strong leadership to be able to see through that and help them to succeed by setting them up for success and helping them to do that more than just judging them for not being able to do something. Does that make sense? But we'll learn these techniques, which is super exciting. But remember, when we go through this, I invite all of you to get super safe and comfortable, to bring the problems, bring the scenarios, bring real life situations, because as soon as you tell your story where your stuck points are, everyone's gonna be going, oh, yeah, I can see that in me, here, there, and everywhere. And then it's gonna give them a peek into themselves so they could biocode. So does anybody have any thoughts or questions? Or did this help clarify? Because remember, this is 2 half days of in-person, and the rest is gonna be on calls, and then we'll have some one-on-ones.
All of you may not know that this process is gonna last about 5 months, so like, we don't have to solve world hunger all at once right now today.
Yeah.
We're gonna do, this point of today and yesterday was to just get these concepts and these new way of thinking and these ideas and tools, like, into your tool belts and into your heads. The work is gonna come in your one-on-one sessions, which we'll be scheduling with you individually over the phone, it's fine, and then the group sessions where we're not gonna be doing any of this. All we're gonna be doing is, okay, bring it, now let's biocode that. Okay, bring it, let's biocode that. Just so you can watch and learn and
Right.
see how to practice.
Yeah,
You-
because in order to get good at this, you need time and you need experience. It's not just learning this. Everything that we say today, you're gonna be nodding like this, but if you can't actually say that and repeat it and be able to start practicing it, then it's pretty much worthless. So most of the work is gonna be done outside of your real life, and then we're gonna just debrief and say, all right, where we at? Where'd you hit, where'd you miss? And we're gonna start, having conversations about that, and then you'll see yourself starting to biocode. And by the end of the time, you'll be really good at this, really, really good at this. But it does take time. No, I have never had an overnight success yet, not even one. That's just the way it works. We're all students of life, right? So are we good? So biocode 1, what is the main idea in biocode 1? It's all about, right?
Solo work.
Solo work. It's anonymous work. Are you allowed to correct anybody else other than yourself? No. Leave everybody alone. Leave all the broken people in the world alone. They're not broken. They're just working on it too from wherever they're at. Okay? So this is only about you. And I think that's the most beautiful part, is that you're doing it anonymously. You're only trying to help from your perspective. One of two things will happen. Either it will help or it won't help, but at least you did your part in it. Right? At least you know you came from the best place that you could be that could be helpful. It's like you think of the tree, right? The tree knows how to help itself. The tree, when you think of a tree, You think of life force, it gives us oxygen, right? We'd be dead without the trees. But the tree doesn't think that way. You know what the tree does? It thinks, what do I need to do to be my best self? And it takes from the sun, from the rain, from the minerals of the soil, and it fills itself up, and then it produces a byproduct called oxygen, or leaves for the shade, right? What we give to life should be a byproduct of a well-tended life. You get that? Now, if you're giving your apple tree and you're producing all these apples and the starving kid goes by, whether that child takes that apple or not is not your responsibility. You know you gave your best, and that's all you could do. But we don't have to force, why aren't you taking my apples? If you only took my apples, then everything would be fine. Either they will or they won't, and their pain points in their life will dictate
And we
what
have
they
such
need to
a,
do.
we have such a quid pro quo mentality. Like, well, I did this, they should do that. Like it's back to what Jill was saying about when you donate to a charity, somebody somewhere when they donate and they write their name on the check and they, get out there. And I'm not saying all people are this way, but like the mentality is so often with us is like, I did X, and then you have now an expectation that somebody's gonna quid pro quo you for what you did, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, God, on Susan's birthday last year, I went to Nordstrom's, I got her a really nice shirt. She didn't even call me on my birthday. Like, we have this like expectation that there's a quid pro quo for everything. But what Jill's saying is, there's, you gotta change your thinking about that, and you're gonna do what you're gonna do because it's who you are and who you wanna be in the world. Not because somebody's gonna do something back to you. for
Right.
that.
See, there's a shift of that. It's like, if I'm nice to you, then you should be nice to me. That's how we learned it. This way is, I'm gonna be nice to you anyway, period, because I'm a nice person, because I'm always gonna be nice to people. I'm gonna be, that's who I wanna be, that's what I wanna bring to the table. Then I'm gonna observe you. If you're nice to me, I'm probably gonna wanna hang out with you a lot more, and if you're not, I'm probably gonna look for people who are nice, and I'm gonna redirect myself away from that. Meaning life doesn't have to match my needs, I have to be able to find that in life. But you have to decide who you are, regardless of how other people are. Does that make sense? It's
Makes
a little-
sense, but it's a hard concept to.
Well, you'll learn it,
latch-
yeah.
to
And it's
catch, because
different
I
in
feel
the
like-
work situation because you're with people that
You
are,
have to be with.
yeah, it's not
But I
like
think
a
it's in-
friendship.
I think it's in life, right? Like, I understand the words that you're saying, so I'm I'm fine with the comprehension. I think it's the application of the comprehension.
Oh, we're working on
And
it.
there is a paradigm that's hard for me to say that, it's almost as if you're giving, one of my favorite authors is Henry Cloud, and he talks a lot about boundaries. And so there's an establishment of boundaries that's very much who I am, and very much how I activate myself in the world, and that's me holding on to that.
Oh, yeah,
And so I feel like somehow or another, maybe I'm just misinterpreting what you're saying,
yeah,
is that as a human being in the world, I have a boundary.
there is a
on
boundary.
that.
Of course.
And
Right.
so my expectation of your behavior is based upon the boundary I've set for myself.
Oh, there's no question, because you teach people how to treat you by what you allow.
Right, so
Right.
Yeah, we're
So
not-
in
I'm
my
not hearing
code,
that in that.
No.
5, you're gonna learn how to direct and redirect your conversations, how to direct and redirect your participation in that. You're gonna set boundaries and rules depending upon if it's children or constant relationships, but we're not gonna do it in an unkind way. We're not gonna do that in a way where we're being hurtful to another person or making them wrong. We're gonna do it in a very healthy way that's not only gonna help you, but it's gonna help other people adjust to that. That's the difference. But of course, I talk about boundaries all day, every day, or else everybody's just gonna be shitting all over each other. But that's not productive. That's not productive. Having a clear vision of who you are is very productive. Having a conversation with that in mind is very productive because you're gonna learn what's okay and what's not okay, right? By what I allow.
Yeah, this is not work that says we're just, it's not like we're all just gonna become doormats and you're just gonna
Oh,
be this
gosh, no.
lovely, wonderful
Quite the
person and
opposite.
you're gonna be nice to everybody and let everybody walk all over. That would be a massively unproductive and ineffective world because there are certain things that, raise all of us in certain ways we, need to be in this world. And we're never gonna look at the murderers and go, oh, well, if they could do better, they should do better, whatever. Where you can't, it's not that. So you're just further down the path of how to apply again, so. just.
Yeah, again, there's a way of doing it in a nice way, in a kind way that represents you well, and there's a way of doing it where you're just complaining and saying, well, that's not okay, and you can't do that to me, and you shouldn't say that, and why would you? Are we correcting somebody else's behavior, or are we clear with who we are? And if you're clear with who you are, people will treat you that way. You know, it's like you have a boundary in your home, don't you? And you lock your door at night, so nobody could walk in at any given moment. And in your life, the same is true. You know, you decide that, what's your boundary, and when it's appropriate, when it's not appropriate, and you have to set those rules in a kind way.
So I was looking at the agenda, and I know that you've got time for scenarios at the end, which I think is gonna be something that we'll all wanna jump into, be sure.
Yeah.
So I wanna make sure, that you had enough time to go through the.
Yeah, we're gonna go through it now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So let's pull out our deck. Are we excited? So yesterday, we learned some important concepts. We learned it's all about you. Your problems aren't your problems, right? Your problems are your opportunities to grow. We all tracking and following this concept, right? And we're learning how to exercise these, you know, qualities within ourselves, right? So we're very clear with this. This is fluctuating work. You couldn't do it wrong even if you tried. Most work comes from pain points, not from trying to be perfect, right? In BioCode 1, we learned the goal, the new perspective, and how do we start applying it. And this analogy right here is the one I just gave you with the hold on to the pole. Hold on to the storm, you're gonna get stronger, right? Like, oh, was that a breeze? Was that a conversation? It just doesn't affect you the same way. All right, so let's go to BioCode 2. Because this one is one that people use all the time. This one is so helpful. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna learn our inner workout. Because we learn when life pushes against us, it shows us our weaknesses, right? Like if, you know, as a doctor, if I did resistance exercises, you go like, okay, hold on now. And then all of a sudden it blows out. We'll go like, oh, well, that's where we need to work because your triceps is weak, right? We wouldn't say like, oh, that was strong, let's just make that stronger. Well, within ourselves, we have strengths, which we don't need help with that, because we're just showing those points. And we also have weaknesses, right? So the exercises in BioCode 2 shows you your own personal weaknesses. So you can start exercising them. Does that make sense? And everybody's is unique and specific to them, and they change depending upon what you're thinking about, what you're dealing with, who's involved in that, if it's a repeat situation, if it's a lifelong pain like that. I mean, it changes depending upon who you are and what you're dealing with, but your pain points are your own. So let's go around. We'll go around this way, and you can go ahead and read the goal, and then you'll read the new perspective, and we'll start learning how to do this.
Okay. Goal, to practice your inner workout daily to build your weaker emotional muscles.
And the key word in that is weaker. We're trying to build our weaker. We want to get excited about seeing like, wow, I was in that conversation and it made me feel frustrated. Awesome, now I know I can exercise that. And we'll show you how.
Your emotional weaknesses are strengths in disguise when exercised properly.
Now, who would have ever thought of that? Emotional weakness is actually a strength in disguise. Now, before we get into the awareness and how to adjust our thinking in that and our action, we're going to learn another new way of thinking, and it's on this chart over here, okay? So for the purpose of biocoding, we're going to learn a new model when it comes to emotions. Now, if you're raised like I was raised, we're raised that emotions come in two categories, right? We have our negative emotions and we have our positive emotions, right? We have fear and safety. We have impatience and patience. And we were taught if we could only get rid of these negative emotions or these negative people or this negativity, then we could be positive and happy and healthy and live happily ever after. But for the sake of biocoding, we're going to think about it differently, okay? Instead of thinking about emotions in two categories, we're going to think about all emotions as one system. The best analogy is to the muscles in your body, right? So you come to the world and you have the muscles in your body, right? And as long as you stay here on the planet, you're not going to receive any extra ones, right? It is what it is. You have your biceps and you have your triceps and your deltoids, you have all these different muscles in your body, right? And depending upon what you get exposed to, some of those muscles could get really, really, really strong, and some of those muscles could get weak, but it's still the same muscle, okay? Does that make sense? Your emotions, we're gonna think about your emotions the same way. Instead of thinking about them as a dual system, we're gonna think about them as one positive system of emotions, only positive, okay? So, for example, if you have your biceps muscle, let's think about that like confidence, your confidence muscle. Say you get raised by parents who really like, oh, just be confident and be strong and don't let, your confidence muscle will get really, really strong. And how you show up in the world would be really strong, right? But if you get raised by different parents or get exposed to something and they're like, oh, do you really want to do that? Or don't take chances, or I don't know, your uncle tried to succeed in that business and he failed, you better take the safe route. Maybe that same muscle might get weak, right? We used 2 words to describe one muscle. When the confidence muscle is strong, we call it the word confidence. When that same muscle is weak, instead of saying a weakness in confidence, we change the word to the word doubt. Because of this dual labeling system, we think it's something separate that we have to get rid of. Is this making sense? Instead of developing the weakness, right? All you are is positive. It's how you came into the world. You didn't come into the world doubting. You came into the world, my turn, and deserving, and excited to take it on, right? Ask any kid, right? I can have it all, do it all, be it all. What are you going to be when you grow up? Ask any kid what they're going to be. They're not going to go like, oh, I think I'm going to get into middle management. You know, kids are like, I could be the president or an astronaut or a movie star, right? Because they think big, because they know all they are is positive, all they've ever been is positive, all they ever could be is positive. But we get exposed to different things that make us feel weaker. Because of this labeling situation, it's the real emotion, it is what it is, it feels like that, but it's labeled separately. So we're going to change the labeling for the sake of exercising. So instead of, when you look at this chart over here, instead of thinking of your emotions as positive and negative, we're going to think of them as weaker and stronger. Why are we going to do that? Because when you feel that weakness, it's going to tell us which exercise to work on. So instead of saying, I need to stop being so negative, we can practice being positive. Instead of saying, I need to stop being so frustrated, we'll be able to practice being patient. Is this resonating with y'all?
Is this patience with yourself or patience with others?
Fill in the blank, it's patience.
Well,
Here, there, anywhere.
Okay, but we're depending on ourselves too.
Depends on you. Like, you might be
So-
more patient with other people than you are with yourself. You could be harder on yourself than
A
you
lot
are
of people,
with all of
yeah,
us,
are
or
super
vice
patient with
versa.
others, but they just beat themselves too hard.
Or opposite, they could be like, oh, I'm good, I'm patient, I'm fine, I'm good when I'm at home, but man, these people are driving me crazy. It just depends on what happens to you in that
What
moment.
was going through your mind at the time?
Just that, I can control the patience with myself.
There you
I can't control the patience with other people.
Oh, there you go.
So, yeah, so that's.
So when that pushes against you,
And the
you're gonna
trust
learn
too,
an
yeah.
exercise to practice patience in that scenario.
Mhm.
You may not need it when you're home alone and you're chilling out, but you may need it when you're in a group of people who are driving you crazy. There'll be a lot more exercise there than at home.
Okay, because I was just looking at the trust and the confidence, because we're talking about, it's all about us. But then when we realize that we can't control
Well-
other people, then how do you put that trust into motion?
Well,
when you
again,
can't
it's
control
when
it?
life pushes against you, it's gonna show you what lives within you. It's all about you, but that's you being exposed to life. It's your move. You get that? So like, if I'm an annoying person, and I keep like being annoying to you, and that irritates you, that's about you. I'm still annoying, but that's about you.
Okay.
Because then if you develop the patience or the ability to either strengthen or navigate that and move away from that, or understand how to communicate with that more effectively, your life's gonna be easier. I'll still be annoying, you know, because that's the way that I am, but it's always about you.
The joke's always on us. You know, an annoying person comes in, somebody does something, well, they're gone on with their day. They're back at the birthday party. Your day's ruined.
And you
So
took
the
it
joke's
with
on
you.
you, like, is the problem
Yeah.
them or is the problem you?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, I say that all the time, are you carrying around the symptom of other people's problems? You know, it's like somebody cuts you off in traffic, and you're like, what's wrong with these people? And you go home with the whole entire story, and they made their right turn, and they're on with their life. It's like, why are we taking on other people's stuff? It's hard enough dealing with our own, we don't need them as well. You know, I used to tell my kids that, you know, when they were little, we'd be driving in traffic, and I'm a slow driver, I'm like a grandma driver, and I drive really slow, and then someone will like honk behind us, and they'll go, Mom, and I'm like, and I know people are just friendly in the South, they're just waving. So to this day, they're all like, God, the people are so friendly around here.
Now, is that true? No, the person was mad as hell.
But I didn't have to take that
But
with
she
me.
didn't have to make that.
They went
really real.
on.
You're right.
So it's what you bring inside of yourself. Yeah. Okay, so let's get this model proper, okay? So let's just say that if you look at this chart, these words that are across from each other, which the secret to this biocode is they're exactly the opposite. Like, for example, the opposite of fear is safety, right? The opposite of doubt is confidence. Do you see that? Do you see the correlation there? The opposite of overwhelm is calm. So that means when you start to get a pain indicator within yourself, right? And it starts flashing, instead of using the word that we're used to, like, oh, I'm being so frustrated right now, we're gonna learn how to find the opposite word. It means that muscle could use a little bit of exercise right there, and we're gonna practice patience. Are we gonna be able to do it? No, but we're gonna try it, and then we're gonna try it again, until eventually we're gonna become patient in the same exact kinds of situation. This makes life productive, because we keep trying to get rid of something, a symptom, that truly really doesn't exist. It's like we gave the example yesterday, you're driving in your car and your gas light comes on. Let's think of our negative words that we use, like indicator lights. And basically it's telling you, hey, you need a little more gas. Frustration is saying, hey, you need a little more patience. Overwhelm is, hey, you need a little more calmness in your life. This kind of fear, hey, you need a little more practice in safety. If you're worried, hey, you need a little more practice in trust. It's telling you the exact muscle that has that opportunity to flex, and whatever you practice, you get stronger at. This biocode is life-changing.
You do
Life-changing.
You do not have to, people think that you, like, for example, I hear this all the time in business. You know, well, you know, when I get a little more confident, I'm gonna go for that new job. And it doesn't work that way. You go for the new job, and then your confidence is built, right? So what?
As you practice
right?
confidence, you get confidence.
You get confidence. So here, the trick is, people say, and what I watch it all the time, people just label themselves as, well, I'm just not a patient person. Whoop, label, inbox, done, like as if that's your state and condition that you were born with, and you're gonna be that way for the rest of your life. Not true. When we put ourselves in that box and we label ourselves that way, you know, we're not even giving ourselves an opportunity to practice something different than that. And I guarantee you, and I'm a walking, talking, living example of this, and Scott could probably attest to it to the degree that he's observed it, you know, particularly in my life as I've raised my kids. I was, at a very young age, became very anxious and worried about the people that I love. And there's reasons that happened. Things happened in my life that taught me that I needed to worry, you know, about the people that I love. So worry just became a habit. So what happened to me is that I just would worry all the time. If anything came up, like I'll give you an example. My kids were in, you know, in high school, and you know, going out somewhere, and they were driving across the city, and they were supposed to get there by 10 o'clock, and then I said, you know, text me when you get there, and I don't hear from them. Well, about 9:30, not even to my knowledge of it, I'm starting to worry. Okay, it's 9:30, I wonder if they're there yet. I should hear from them by 10. You know, by 10 o'clock, I'm ready for that text message to go off. And if that text message doesn't go off, I've got them in the ditch, over the end, like in the hospital, Nobody called me because a cell phone flew, 200 feet from the accident and they couldn't find it. Like, I had a whole story in my head by 10:05. By 10:20, I'm like calling their friends. Hey, so-and-so there yet? Or texting, So it's like this, it was just a habit, but it's a habit born out of an experience young in life. But I didn't know that. It just became who I am. I'm just a worrier. So this was my 4.5 years ago when I started this work. This was my test. I said, if I can become somebody who doesn't worry, anybody can do this. Because this is almost 60 years old. That's a lifelong habit, right? So I've been doing it a long time. So when worry would come, in the moment, something would trigger me. I would notice, catch the weakness, and I'd say, that's familiar. Jill, practice trust. And I'd go right on with what I was doing. Now, did I feel good in that moment? Did the worry just stop? No. But I said, practice trust. And then I would go back to whatever I was doing, and then 5 minutes later, if the thought came into my head, I'd be like, wow, noticing how often. Practice trust. Well, I did that for maybe a month, and now this was years ago. It's remarkable now. It's just like not there. Now, does that mean that extraordinary things don't happen, and then I, will get worried? Of course they do. When my daughter called at 2 in the morning, if I told her I wasn't worried, I'd be lying. Of course there's reasons why, but it's not a habit anymore. I don't just do it all day, every day, out of the habit of doing it. Does that make sense?
And even in that case, she pulled it back and said, all right, practice trust, assume innocence, I'm sure she's fine. She took action steps upon it, got in the car, went there, did all the right things, but she didn't do it like the crazy lady. Like, oh my God, are you okay? Call 911, is somebody with you? And like, what are you doing? Are you standing up? She didn't get crazy with it. She was so functional in dealing with a very stressful situation. She just wasn't like flailing all over the place.
By the way, I say 4 years ago, I worked on this in 4 years out, but it literally within weeks started to dissipate. Within months, massively down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have a question for you about the business environment. So based off of what you've seen, Jill, in a business environment, are there any of these that tend to be more prevalent than others, or are they?
Overwhelm.
Oh yeah.
Frustration,
Frustration,
overwhelm,
and expectation.
Huge expectation.
Expectation, frustration,
Sitting with that question for a
Yeah.
while.
Well, I would say, okay, so if we really go down there, there's doubt, overwhelm, judgment,
Judgment is huge.
insecurity, frustration, and expectation would be like some of the really big ones. And Derek, we want to go back because we do want to understand, some of these are not intuitive to all people. So what question?
I just don't understand how expectation and observation are a
Yeah, I'll show you what we mean by that. Because what we did is we just pulled out, obviously there's so many emotions. I mean, we could go on forever with how many emotions, but we pulled out the most common ones. And you don't have to be that specific with this exercise and even get the word exactly right. If you pick any of these words and practice the opposite, you're still going to grow. Like, you don't even have to do it right for it to work, and it's still going to work. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this list, and I'm going to show you why we put the opposite word in there, right? So do y'all get that fear and safety is basically the same emotion, one in the weaker state? When my muscle is strong, how does it feel? Feels good, it feels great, I can lift things, I can exercise, right? When that same muscle is weak, how does it feel and function? Completely different. It feels weak, it's hard to move, but we don't change the word. We don't call a biceps a schmiceps, right? We use the same word. Well, with emotions, if we use the same word when it's strong and when it's weak, and then exercise it to strength, we're going to be productive. If we use the wrong word, all we're going to do is label ourselves and say like, oh, my indicator light came on. Oh, that sucks. I'm just a person who's low on oil all the time. No, the oil light is telling you to put oil in your car. The fear is telling you to start putting some safety into your life and practicing that. It takes a lot of practice.
And to Jill's point, this is where we put it this way because it's easy to teach it.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy for you to grab the concept, and it's easy for you when you have training wheels on to know what to practice. But if I give you an illustration of like somebody in the military, right? Y'all know somebody in the military, these Navy SEAL guys, right? Go into life-threatening situations. Do they have fear? You think when they go in those situations? Of course, naturally you would have fear. Do they practice safety? Probably not, because they don't know that, they're going to, it's not a safe. But do they trust themselves in that situation despite their fear? Do you think they have trust muscles that are huge, right?
Yeah.
So it's not always like what you practice doesn't always, It's
No.
not always a direct correlation of that exact emotion, but once
Yeah.
you get the concept and once you can practice it in this way that your mind can grab it and give you a new way of thinking, then you'll notice that a rising tide, what I say, a rising tide floats all boats. You practice any one of these opposites, it's gonna strengthen. It's just like if you're trying to work on your bicep muscle, you go to a gym and you do like some kind of exercise for biceps, is that not also strengthening your tricep and your shoulder, right? So a lot of this practice is gonna work multiple of these muscles, even if your thinking is on a particular one. Is that good? Everything makes sense? Okay.
Yeah, and it's a very simple idea and a simple concept, but the whole idea is to change the way you label your emotions, so at least you find the right word to practice. Because the absence of night doesn't bring day. The absence of fear doesn't bring safety. Practicing safety builds
Brings
safety, period. So this gives you a way of doing that. So if you look down the list, does it make sense to you that doubt and confidence are opposite words? So let's think about it like doubt equals a weakness in confidence, and you need a little work on your confidence muscle. And we exercise it in those moments. Overwhelm and calm makes sense, right? Judgment and acceptance. That probably, does that make sense to you? Maybe it doesn't, because if you're powerless to change anybody other than yourself, what we do is we work from what I call the observation state. This is a very fact-based program. To be able to observe yourself, regardless of how you feel or function, and know how to do the next right thing, is why it works. Because if you just operate by how you feel in that moment, you're just the boat in the ocean doing this thing again, right? So we have to be able to observe ourselves to see where we're weakening, and we have to be able to observe other people. So if you're judging another person, right, you're not really observing them. Doesn't mean you like their behavior, but when somebody shows you who they are in that moment, which could change rapidly, all we want you to do is accept that. Accept that that's who they are. Acceptance does not mean agreement. I can promise you that. If we go out to dinner and all of a sudden you start jumping on the table and acting like a monkey, I can accept that you do that. I probably won't go to dinner with you again, but I can accept that that's who you are. So I can make my choices in life. Are you with me? I can't control somebody else's behavior other than my own, but I could observe your behavior. So instead of me judging you, I am going to observe you and accept that what you show me is true in that moment, which could change rapidly, so I could decide how I want to act or interact in that. And that's why the opposite of judgment is acceptance from the perspective of the biocodes, because we have to see what's within us, right? And we have to see what's around us so we could decide how to navigate that and how to participate in that. Does that make sense?
And it's judgment acceptance, another example of that too, is situations would be if you lose your job. Let's just take that as an example. Some people just get stuck in judging whether that should or shouldn't have happened. I shouldn't have lost my job. He shouldn't have said that. The company should have, so the longer you stay in judgment, the slower you can take action to move your life forward. So if you got to acceptance fast, that happened, that sucks, I hate it, but it did. So just simple acceptance.
And it doesn't mean it's a feel-good moment.
Doesn't
Most
mean you
of
like
these
it.
moments don't feel good.
Right.
They're not feel-good moments, they're workable moments.
Right.
If they felt good, you wouldn't need to work on them,
So
right?
the faster in life, in anything, the faster you can move to acceptance, the faster you have a path forward to something productive. Back to why we're doing all of this is because we want productive, fulfilled, successful, good lives. Productivity pulls us to this.
Yeah. So what's the opposite of worry? Right? What's the opposite of insecurity? Makes sense? Frustration. And again, expectation is the same as judgment. We're not expecting, we're observing. So if she's observing this person, she says, here's your job requirements, and she observes that person and they're not fulfilling that job requirement, and she does it effectively again and they're not. After all, she's going to observe them and say, like, I got to find somebody else for this position. Because she clearly, I sent a boat, a train, a helicopter, everything. I've done it all, and she's still not up to par. Then I have to rethink that. Or, but you still have to observe. You have to observe your behavior and you have to observe theirs. Does that make sense? Takes off judgment and it helps you to just participate in life.
And how often, think about this expectation thing is huge, how often all day long do we set expectations? Like, we don't even tell people. Like, think of husbands and wives, right? If those of you that are married, you know, think of this all the time. Like, oh, our anniversary's coming up. I'm sure, you know, it's my 35th anniversary. I'm sure my husband's thinking about that. And now we've got a whole story. I've got a bar set for him. Then, like, he forgets my anniversary. Where do I have to go with that? Like you know where to go, but be massively frustrated and disappointed because you had this, as opposed to if I would say to him, you know, hey, our 35th anniversary is coming up in a couple of months. You know, like if we tell people sort of what we need from them or what our needs are, you know, then they don't, you know, come through. Then that's a whole other, you know, discussion about like your relationship. But we all the time, we know something, we feel something, we want something, then we toss that expectation over to somebody, and then when they don't read our mind and do what we wanted, you know, then we're disappointed in us and them, and you know, it's just so unproductive. So expectation, I heard somebody say once, expectation is like the appetizer to a meal full of disappointment. Right, so you gotta drop that expectation, and when something doesn't go the way you thought it was going to or you wanted to, observe that, and then say, oh.
Now, remember, we're talking about human behavior.
Right.
You have an expectation for this company. You have
That's
marks
different.
that you have to meet. That's completely different. We are talking about human behavior, how you show up and how you interact while you're working on these huge goals and missions that you're on, right? Don't confuse what you do with who you are. That's a whole separate category. You keep those goals high, you keep going for it, you set your expectations for JA like through the roof, and everybody's got to keep raising to that thing, but how you're acting and interacting in that is what we're talking about. Does that make sense? That's a completely different animal.
Yeah,
So-
expectations of human behavior, not
Yeah.
expectations that
Yeah.
we're gonna hit
Has
goals.
nothing to do with performance.
Right, right.
Yeah.
This is that thing where I said there's a separation
Yeah.
between the job description and the way we run businesses and all these things.
Yeah.
Clearly, you know, when you hire somebody, in fact, when you, as you have employees, the biggest mistake managers make is they hire somebody, they fall in love with the person they hired, they tell them what the job is, and then they have expectations that this person's gonna perform at that level, and then you go back and say, well, did you actually ever be really, really clear about what those goals and
The
expectations
expectation
were?
of job
Right,
description,
right,
of course,
right.
that's completely different.
Different subject.
Yeah, different subject. So if we look at this chart right here, we're gonna think about emotions as one system of strengths and weaknesses. We're gonna have to use the words that we got used to because they're in our brain already. We're programmed to do that. So when we learn the 3 steps, we're gonna feel the emotion that we feel when life pushes against us, like you will feel frustrated, right? But that word is gonna tell you to practice the opposite, and we're gonna show you how to do that. So could you see that confidence and doubt is the same muscle? This is in a weaker form, and that's in a stronger form. So when you feel that doubt, it's basically saying, we need more practice and confidence here. Yeah? Make sense? Okay, so let's go through the 3 steps right now. So step 1, the awareness. What we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be going fishing. And what we're fishing for are weaker thoughts. Because most emotions show up in a thought or a story. You don't just have an emotion for no reason, right? You're driving in your car, you're excited about getting to the meeting, you put enough time, right, aside, and then all of a sudden this train comes by, and you're the next one in line and you're stuck behind it, and you realize you're gonna be late. You don't sit there and just go like that. There's a story like, oh my God, I'm gonna be late, I can't believe that this is going on, my boss isn't gonna like this really sucks, why'd everybody go through the train but me, had I left 5 minutes early? There's gonna be some kind of story going on in your head that's gonna go on and on and on and on. That's gonna cause you to feel impatient and frustrated and so forth. So the first thing you gotta do is catch that story. You have to catch that story that's going on in your head, and the quicker you could catch it, the stronger you're gonna get. So we have to catch the story, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn that story into one word to describe how it makes you feel. That makes me feel impatient. That makes me feel frustrated. That makes me feel insecure.
So your story would be great. You have this whole story, her history, you, blah, blah, blah. There's this
That
whole
makes me
story
feel, pick
that
one
makes
word
you
to
feel
describe how it made you feel.
irritated.
Okay, that makes me feel irritated. That's your one word. That's all we're trying to get out of that whole story. The longer the story lingers, the more you go on with it, the weaker you in the situation is gonna get. The quicker you can stop the story, stop the madness, and find one word to describe how it makes you feel, the quicker you're gonna start strengthening. So we're gonna find that word, right? And then what we're gonna do is, we're gonna take that word and we're gonna look at our chart or just remember our muscles, right? And we're gonna pick the opposite word. We're gonna pick the opposite word. For example, frustration would be patience. Worry would be trust. And in that moment, all you're gonna do is say the opposite word, just like exercising a muscle. I'll say, Jill, just practice patience. Are you gonna feel patient? No, you're gonna feel frustrated. You're not gonna, but you're gonna say it anyway, right? And every time you say it, that muscle is flexing and flexing and flexing, and over time, you're gonna start to get stronger. Does that make sense? Yeah? Are we getting that? So all we're gonna do is we're going fishing, we're fishing for weaker thoughts. They show up in stories. We're gonna try to catch the story. We're gonna create one word to describe, you only get one word to describe how it made you feel. That made me feel overwhelmed. Okay, practice patience, and then carry on to the next moment. And if you miss that story, and you will, just like fishing, if you're fishing and you fishing and a whole school of fish go by and you miss the whole thing, you don't go, why didn't I get those fish? All you say is, I look forward to catching the next one. There's no processing, no going back, no beating yourself up. You catch it, praise yourself. If you don't catch yourself, you say, I look forward to catching the next one. We never beat ourselves up for what we didn't do. We only praise ourselves for the awareness or for doing it and saying like, hey, good job, I caught one. I'm proud of me. Good enough, and I promise you, don't worry about missing it because the next one's coming within 5.5 seconds, again and again and again.
And what you'll learn, because you took the survey and all these things, but what you're gonna learn, what we all learn is, we all have a dominant weakness. We all have a dominant area.
Oh yeah,
right?
you'll find your same
You'll see
word
it
that you
really
use
easy.
again and
The
again
same
and
words will
again.
keep coming up because those are the habits of your thinking, of your life. They'll show themselves to you. So it's not like you're gonna be practicing 15 of these all day long. You know, there's gonna be 2 or 3 that are gonna come up over and over and over again. We should take a break.
Yeah, so let's take a break. We'll take 5 minutes, yeah? Is that good?
I think
5, 10
5
minutes?
or 10.
10 minutes?
So let's watch this because we obviously, and Jack, you know, being the good CEO he is very conscious and awareness of this. It's 10:05. If you would actually look at your clocks, it's 10:05. If you could be back at 10:15, that's great. And then we'll make sure that we recoup our time and get on schedule so that we do everything we need to do today, get you out of here on time.